What's going on, you fam? Raiyuden here, and yes, I am finally back from vacation. I do apologize. I didn't have a chance to do any sort of showcases for the new units as I didn't have. It wasn't at home. I wasn't able to do it. So thank you guys for being patient. I can finally get to them now. I do look forward to sharing what I think about the units as well as the teams I like to use them on. But to begin, we're going to be running the Universe 6 team with Hit. After all, he's the most talked unit between the two units that dropped on that Legends Rising. For sure, Hit is most likely the better one. At first I thought it was the Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken Goku, but once I realized there's a lot more diversity with the Hit, as well as a bunch of different things you can do with him. He's the most versatile and more powerful unit, so he's better than the Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken Goku. So for the team, we're going to be rocking Hit, Kale, Caulifla, Kaba, and Caulifla again on the bench. The only unfortunate thing about the Universe 6 team is they're kind of old. The units are kind of old. I was really hoping that on the Legends Rising they would release a support unit for the Universe 6 tag. It seemed really appropriate if you ask me. Give them a support unit, Hit, and the third unit could probably do well. The units are a little bit outdated, but not to the point where they're, gonna get stomped. After all, Hit is very strong. He can probably carry the team pretty hard. He's just that dominant. So enough about that. Let's jump into some PvP. Alrighty, here's the first match of the video, going up against the Sun family team. I do apologize if I sound a little under the weather. I actually am sick. When I got back, I got a bit of a cold, so what can you do? You're in with a lot of people, so you're bound to get sick. It always happens. Now, for the fight, I don't actually like starting out with Hit. So if you guys know his passive, Hit's passive basically makes it so that at 30 timer counts he's at his strongest. So I tend not to make him the first guy that I use, just so that I can hold off having to swap him in as long as I can to get as many buffs as I can. So at 30 timer counts, that's when Hit's really showing his true potential. So I'm gonna stall as much as I can until I can get Hit. Oh, also, please keep in mind, well, not really keep in mind, I am using a new phone, so I'm just getting used to it now. It's very much different from my old phone, so it's gonna be a weird transition, but hopefully in the end things are better. Hopefully you guys notice the improvements in the frame rate as well. That's one of the things I wanted to fix, because you guys pointed out it was blurry every now and then and stuff, so hopefully everything looks better to you guys. Now, it's been more than 30 timer counts, so Hit's at his strongest right now in terms of, inflicted damage, the reduced cost for his cards. And what makes Hit really strong is his absurd crit rate. Staying true to the show, Hit is always capable of getting critical hits because he's very precise in his assassination technique. So he has a very high crit rate, very high crit base, and critical hits do an absurd amount of damage regardless of your opponent having type advantage over you. So people have been putting him on all manner of team, and his critical damage is able to carry him through pretty much everything. So I feel like the developers are trying to bring back type teams. So they like the idea of, yellow, yellow, blue, or, blue, blue, purple. They like that idea. It makes things more diverse to be able to make teams based off of type as opposed to tag. So Hit looks like the initial revival to that idea, because he buffs both yellow and blue, which is perfect. Yellow being a good mono yellow team, and blue being the appropriate counter to counter the yellow being red. So you often see people running a mix of Lineage of Evil with Hit, just because some of the strongest yellow units are on Lineage of Evil. Like, they like to run the full power Frieza, because one of Hit's weaknesses is he has very low defenses. They had to make some sort of compromise for Hit being very strong, and naturally it's to reduce his defenses. So he's very weak defensively. Well, not very weak, but it's a point of weakness for him. So his defenses are low, he's offensively dominant, and people have decided that in order to make up for that, they could make a team with a very strong yellow. So full power Frieza, after all, he may be the best defensive unit in the game. And then people tend to run Blue Cooler as well. And it only really makes sense if you ask me. He gets buffed by full power Frieza, gets an additional buff by Blue Cooler. Blue Cooler essentially acts like a Lineage of Evil version of Bardock. It works out really well, and I think that's like a top 3 team right now. They're just that good. So going to the match here, it's a good thing I used that main ability at that moment just so that I could get the guy. A lot of you guys tend to say, "Oh, use her main ability, damn it, you don't use her main ability enough." And I admit, for me, I just try to save it for the most ideal moment. That's a bit of a problem that I have. I like to save it until I can take full advantage of it, but you guys are probably right. I end up going through the entire match not even using it, so it just looks silly, really. And we get to close up the match. The match dragged on for quite some time, and unfortunately that's just because these units are a little outdated, minus hit of course, so the damage output isn't there. But I'm really glad there's now sort of a complete Universe 6 team, because I really like using Kale. I really like Kale's passive for dropping 2 of your opponent's cards while they're continuing their harass. It's just a nice way to stop it short, stop their Dragon Ball farming, stop the Rising Rush farming, and you know, give you an opportunity to get your harass again. It's really nice. So like right here, you'll notice he doesn't follow up with another attack because I stopped it, and now it gives me an opportunity to get priority, as you can see here. Now normally I wouldn't want to swap in the hit so early, just so I could take full advantage of his passive, but I was in a situation where hit would probably be able to do far more damage than what Kale would have done. I always seem to screw up those moments, you know, when you're up in your opponent's face or you're doing side steps like that. I always go like maybe once or twice, and then anytime I go in for a tap attack, my opponent is 100% ready to go for a strike card, and then I end up getting hit. Always sucks. A lot of you guys would tell me, oh, you know, gotta use their main ability, so there it is. And another thing I'm trying to learn, other content creators are very good at pulling off that move you saw earlier, predicting your opponent coming in with a shoulder tackle and you using a strike card, because as you know, strike cards have greater priority over tackles. And you know, it's pretty interesting. I want to learn how to do that, so I'm just working on that. I like how the introduction of the shoulder tackle introduced a new high skilled variant that you can use to counter it. It's really nice. Look at that, hits tap attack alone. With his criticals took him out, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Good opportunity to use the heals. I mainly used it because I couldn't swap Kaba out, and I didn't want to have someone die. So I didn't want to have to use a Rising Rush. I didn't want to have one less Vanish to grab. So I healed, and just so Kaba could, you know, take more hits. And now that Kaba lived, I now have 3 Vanishes versus my opponent's 2, which gives me a huge advantage over him. Didn't want to swap in the hit in the odd chance that he'd pull out full power Frieza. Do a little tap attack to close that out. Do my blue card because he has no option but to be offensive. And it kind of get locked in there. I know he has a green card at this point, popped his main ability, and he's floating back, so I'm gonna try and bait it out here, going in with tackle, seeing what he can do, and ended up working in my favor there. My hope is that they don't release more units with counters at this point. I think we got quite a few in a very short amount of time, and I just don't want the meta to shift so that people are more advantageous by sitting back. I don't want to deal with that again. I mean, in the first place, the fact that they nerfed backfloating in the first place was because of this, but if you have a green card that counters it, it almost feels like that nerf was useless. You now have a green card that will counter anything that comes to you. What do you need a Vanish for? This is the third and final match of the video. Figured it'd be a good opportunity to show off Hit up against a team with a red unit. After all, Hit does have lower than average defenses, as I mentioned before. So how does he fare against a red unit? I have seen on Twitter some people mention that there aren't very good red units to counter out Hit, but I don't think that's true. There are numerous good red units that could deal with Hit. I don't think Hit is so dominant that he can handle all the units that have type advantage over him, even if he has crits. Like for sure, Super Saiyan 2 Gohan would just turn Hit into paper mache for sure. He would just shred him. And here's a case of why you don't preemptively do anything. As you can see here, I took a Rising Rush that I didn't really need to, just because I was so keen on swapping into Kale, and I ended up costing me Kale. It's an unfortunate thing to happen. I buy Kale, it's unfortunate. I don't think I got to use her passive to its full potential. I think I only used it once, but you gain priority back, and here's where Hit really shines. It's absolutely crazy what his critical damage can do, but I still think a very good red unit like Super Saiyan 2 Gohan wouldn't have any issues dealing with it. Criticals or no criticals, really. A lot of the time, I do like, you know, catching your opponent off guard and using a Rising Rush when you pop an ultimate, just because they like to swap in some other unit to survive it. But if you get them with a Rising Rush, then they're not going to survive. A little tap attack there. Someone did note, yeah, every now and then in the comment section I get someone that says that I talk a little too much. So with me being sick and me trying to improve, I could go ahead and use that feedback and have some moments where I don't talk too much, so you can watch. I'm glad he did that because it gives me the opportunity to take out his middle cooler. Like after his red unit is gone, my Hit won't have any issue dealing with the rest of his team. Going for a shoulder tackle at the worst possible time. Always happens to me. They never really work out that well. But it's a bit of a mistake for him to let Kava stay any longer, because his blast damage increases the longer he's in the field. Those critical hit sounds are like Call of Duty hit markers to me. They're just such a satisfying sound. So satisfying to hear. Anyways, that's the third and final match of the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for being patient with me. I am finally back, but I'll need a little bit of adjusting to the new phone, I guess. It's very different from what I usually use. But anyways, till next time, peace out, guys.